Welcome to Noir Alley. I'm Eddie Muller. This is the last episode of Noir Alley before I step aside for Summer Under the Stars. So I thought we'd go out with a bang with Du Rififi Chez les Hommes from 1955, released in the United States in 1956 as simply Rififi. Now, if you want to know what makes Turner Classic Movies so essential, here's at least one of the reasons. If you ask the internet, what are the best heist movies ever made, you're guaranteed to get some long lists of films mostly made in the last 30 years. If those lists don't include The Asphalt Jungle and Rififi, they're worthless. Because one of those two is the greatest heist film ever made. Not because they're old, because they are seminal. The originators. And though one was made in Hollywood and the other in Paris, they have more in common than you might realize. There's absolutely no question that French novelist Auguste Le Breton, the author of the novel Du Rififi Chez les Hommes, specifically set out to create a French version of The Asphalt Jungle, W.R. Burnett's American crime classic, published in 1949, with the film version made at MGM the following year. I'm not going to accuse Le Breton of plagiarism. The man wrote 77 novels and had ample street cred, being an orphan raised in the French underworld. But Rififi's characters and their motivations are identical to those in Burnett's story, just shuffled around a bit. There's a veteran crook just out of the joint, angling for a last score. He hooks up with a gang of ne'er-do-well crooks, a fence, a torpedo, and a professional safecracker. They try to pull off a once-in-a-lifetime job that will allow them all to retire. That's the premise of both stories, with Rififi borrowing almost every element from The Asphalt Jungle, but reshuffling the deck, mixing and matching the characters' motivations and weaknesses. Breton's 1953 novel was a sensation when it was published in France, and the rights were snapped up, with Jean-Pierre Melville expected to direct. But Melville suggested that the producers coax exiled American Jules Dassin into making the picture, despite U.S. ambassadors actively working to keep the blacklisted director from resuming his career overseas. The problem was that Dassin hated the novel, being offended by its racist depiction of a rival gang comprising sadistic Arabs and North African immigrants. He finally agreed to direct it if he could rewrite the script, which shifted the focus from the gang war that follows the robbery to the buildup and execution of the robbery itself, a masterstroke that would make cinema history. Tony Le Stéphanois, played by Jean Servais, is one of the great existential characters in noir. He's just served 5 years in prison, taking the rap for his old pal, Joe the Swede. In gratitude, Joe has named his son Tonio, and the kid is the only thing that can make Tony smile. Otherwise, he's a total cipher. He shows no emotion, whether he's beating his traitorous ex-girlfriend or surveying the $2 million in jewels he's boosted. As an actor, Jean Servais was pretty much washed up, not having made a film in years when Dassin picked him to play Tony. Once a handsome mainstay of 30s romances, by 1955, the Belgian actor was ravaged by booze and hard living. And despite the tired eyes, spindly frame, and tubercular cough, Tony's determination to pull off this last big caper and survive its brutal aftermath makes him one of noir's most memorable characters. Another indelible crew member is Italian safecracker Czar, played by Jules Dassin himself. The actor he'd cast for the part bailed out days before shooting began, and Dassin was forced to step into his ballet slippers. You'll get that soon enough. Dassin is absolutely perfect. The lovelorn eyes, the rakish mustache, the smarminess of an aging Lothario. Now, he appeared under the alias Perlo Vita, and his performance makes you wish that Dassin had appeared in his Hollywood pictures as well. Of course, that would have been vanity. Here, he's a desperate director forced to improvise, and the decision to cast himself paid off in spades. Rififi is legendary for its robbery scene, which runs more than half an hour, literally over a quarter of the movie's length, with no music to artificially pump up the suspense. From concept to execution, it's one of the greatest sequences in movie history. And for those of you who hate subtitles, not a single word is spoken in this extraordinary scene, so you've got no excuse for missing it. And after the show, I'll tell you which film I think is the greatest heist picture of all: The Asphalt Jungle or the one you're about to see, Rififi.